What should I do with my aging parents? Hi, welcome to today's little lesson. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a question today that I was asked some time ago and waited to address it. And it's one that's very close to me because both of my parents, my mother and father, are now with the Lord. But I lost my mom about 4 years ago, lost my dad just a few months ago. And prior to my dad's passing and my mom's passing, both of them lived with myself and my wife and our kids in the latter years of when they were still living at home prior to their marriage. And so we were very, very, very close. My parents loved the Lord, and it was evident in their lives. And it was a joy, really, to have them live with us, although my mother developed aphasia, which it started showing up in her life as in her daily life when she couldn't remember nouns. And we'd hold an object up and say, "Mom, what is this?" And she'd say, "Well, I know what it is. I know what that is. I just can't think of the word for it, you know." And I'd say, "This is a grape." And she goes, "Oh, that's right. That's a grape. Yeah, that's a grape." And then you wait 1 minute and then, "Mom, what is this?" I can't think of the name of that, you know, and it was a grape. And so that got progressively worse. And my dear father did his best to care for her. And he prioritized that. He put a lot of other things aside just to focus on my mother, and the stress on him was incredible. But he persevered. And then she suffered a massive stroke and passed away a few days after that. And you know, it was bittersweet. We, of course, missed her, but we knew she was in heaven, and the stress was off my dad. But that then meant it wasn't my mom and dad living with us. It was my dad, and my kids had all, you know, left the nest. And so we loved having my dad live with us, and he had a kind of a separate apartment. So he was very independent, able to drive, and carried on a ministry, serving every week in several assisted living facilities with doing little church services, little Bible studies for the elderly residents of those places. But then my dad suffered a stroke that disabled him. It changed his personality a little bit, but more evident, he lost his dexterity. He was unable to walk. His one side, had been paralyzed basically, and through therapy and rehabilitation, he did improve, but eventually plateaued. And so he was bound to a wheelchair, couldn't get out of bed himself, and so forth. And he went through residential therapy for several months after his stroke, and then it kind of plateaued at a skilled nursing facility where he was, and the professionals there told him, "Well, your insurance is not going to pay for this any longer. And so, you have to leave and you need to go into an assisted living facility." And my dad said, no, I'm going to go home and live with my son and his wife. And he never really offered any of us any other option than that. And of course, we loved him. We wanted to do what was best for him. I'm sure that's what you would want done for you, and I'm sure that's what you would do for anyone that you love, parent or sibling or whatever. And so that's what you do. And so many people do this. Will care for you. Of course, some people are able to retire, or they are retired by that point in time when their parents need all that care, and so they're able to devote their full amount of time to them, and that's very admirable of them. And my hat's off to them, and we did it, but it brought a lot of stress to my life, just because I was trying to hold down my own full-time job, as well as other responsibilities I have outside my job, as well as take care of my dad. And again, he couldn't he couldn't get out of a chair without help. He couldn't go to the bathroom without help. He couldn't take a shower or bath himself. He needed, a lot of care. And so I did my very best to try to do that for as long as I could, and eventually realized I can't do this. And so we began to bring in helpers and so forth, private aides and some agency aides and so forth. But it was extremely stressful. And I'm probably talking to a lot of people here who themselves are at that place, or they know that that day could come for them. Well, that's the difficulty. It's not an easy decision to know what to do. But I've been talking the last couple of lessons about some peculiarities of the Amish, of which I have some good friends among them. And I asked them, what do you do with your elderly parents when they're not able to function independently any longer? And of course, I knew the answer, but I just wanted to hear what they'd say. And I said, do you have a special home that you put them in? Oh, no. We care for them in our own homes until they die. But then my one very close Amish friend said, we have a saying amongst us. He said, one sick person can kill two healthy people. Now let that sink in for a minute, because there's so much wisdom and truth in that. One sick person can kill two healthy people. And he's referring to the fact that, it brings so much stress and strain into a household, into a family, when, an elderly adult needs a lot of assistance and attention. And this is why so many people wind up having to put their parents into assisted living facilities. And of course, everyone's situation is different. So I asked the question, and I'm not going to fully answer it on this little lesson. I'm going to have to spill into the next one. What do you do with your elderly parents? Well, you love them as best you can, but you also have to be realistic. And that's the most difficult thing, because those two things clash with each other, and our realism clashes with our love. And for me, being so close to my dad for so long and him living with us, I could never tell him, no, you can't come home and live with us. Of course, we wanted him home. We never wanted him to be in an assisted living facility. But here's what happened. Under all the stress of trying to take care of my dad, hold down my job, take care of other responsibilities and so forth, I had a stroke myself. And it was not a full-blown stroke. It's what's called a mini stroke. But I woke up one morning, had this strange sensation in my head, and I tried to button my shirt, and my hand kept falling off my shirt. I tried to tie my shoes, and my one hand kept falling off my shoe. I knew something was wrong. And so my wife rushed me to the emergency room at the local hospital, and they diagnosed me, you had a mini stroke. And all your symptoms will probably resolve themselves in a day or two, which they did. Okay, well, I'm out of time for today's lesson. I think I'll pick up right here on tomorrow's lesson. Hope you'll join me.